The black SUV's headlights cut through the Montana darkness like predators' eyes, and Michael Reynolds knew with the bone-deep certainty that had kept him alive through 3 tours in Afghanistan that death had finally found his doorstep. The wounded woman bleeding in his barn, the billionaire who'd stumbled into his life just 48 hours ago, had brought an army of shadows with her. As he chambered around in his rifle and heard his twin daughters whispering prayers in the safe room below, Michael made a choice that would either save them all or get them killed before dawn. Welcome to a story where one act of kindness becomes a death sentence, where a single father's quiet life explodes into a conspiracy that reaches the highest levels of power. I invite you to follow this journey to its explosive end, and please comment below which city you're watching from, so I can see how far this story has traveled. The autumn wind carried the scent of pine and approaching snow across the Reynolds Ranch, 160 acres of Montana wilderness that Michael had chosen specifically because it was nowhere. 3 years had passed since Sarah's death, 3 years of learning to braid hair and pack school lunches of bedtime stories and nightmare comfort of being both father and mother to Emma and Lily. The twins, 6 years old now, with their mother's honey blonde hair and their father's sharp green eyes, had adapted to this life of isolation better than he'd dared hope. Michael stood on the porch, coffee mug steaming in the crisp morning air, watching the sun paint the distant mountains gold. October in Montana was a symphony of colors: aspens burning yellow against dark evergreens, the sky so blue it hurt to look at. He'd traded his tactical vest for flannel shirts, his M4 carbine for a rancher's rifle, but the hypervigilance never left. Even now, in the peace of dawn, his eyes tracked movement: a hawk circling lazy thermals, deer emerging from the tree line, the familiar pattern of shadows that meant home safety normal. "Daddy, Emma won't share the syrup." Lily's voice pulled him back inside where breakfast chaos reigned. The kitchen, which he'd renovated himself after buying the place, was warm with the smell of pancakes and bacon. Emma sat at the worn wooden table, arms crossed in 6-year-old defiance, while Lily pointed an accusing finger at the syrup bottle positioned exactly in the middle of Emma's place setting. "Emma," Michael said, using what Sarah had called his dad voice, gentle but firm, the same tone that had once commanded a 12-man Special Forces unit. "Share with your sister." "But she got more pancakes," Emma protested, her lower lip trembling with the injustice of it all. Michael counted the pancakes. Exactly 3 on each plate, cut into perfect triangles the way they liked them. "They're the same, sweetheart," I counted. "Hers are bigger pieces," Emma insisted. This was the kind of conflict he faced now: syrup distribution instead of ammunition supply, pancake equality instead of tactical positioning. He wouldn't trade it for anything. "Tell you what," he said, pouring syrup on both plates with mathematical precision. "There. Exactly the same. And if you both finish breakfast without arguing, we'll take Buckwheat and Sundance out for a ride before your lessons." The mention of the horses ended the conflict immediately. Both girls attacked their breakfast with renewed enthusiasm, talking excitedly about which trails they wanted to explore. Michael listened with half an ear while cleaning the kitchen, his mind already running through the day's tasks: fix the fence in the north pasture, check the solar panels before winter, order more firewood. This was their rhythm, their carefully constructed life. Homeschooling in the morning, ranch work in the afternoon. Stories and stars at night. No internet beyond basic satellite for emergencies, no social media, no connection that had taken so much from him. Just him, his daughters, and the vast Montana sky. The accident happened just after lunch. Michael was teaching the girls math using horse feed measurements as practical examples when he heard the sound. Even after 3 years of civilian life, his body responded before his mind processed it. The screech of tires, the crunch of metal meeting earth, the sudden silence that followed catastrophe. "Stay here," he commanded, already moving. "Lock the door behind me." The girls, trained by 3 years of careful instruction, obeyed without question. Michael heard the deadbolt slide home as he grabbed the medical kit from the mudroom and his rifle from the rack, not because he expected trouble, but because in Montana you always prepared for the worst. The SUV had gone off the road a quarter-mile from his gate, down the embankment that dropped toward Miller's Creek. It was a Cadillac Escalade, black and gleaming, even covered in dust and damaged by its violent descent. The front end was crumpled against a massive pine steam rising from the hood, the driver's side door hanging open. Michael approached tactically, using trees for cover, rifle ready, but pointed down. Old habits. The woods were silent except for the tick of cooling metal and the whisper of steam. No movement from the vehicle. No other cars on the road, but then there rarely were. This stretch of county road saw maybe 3 vehicles a day. He found her 20 yards from the SUV, collapsed in the underbrush. She was conscious, but barely, her designer clothes that probably cost more than his truck, torn and bloody. Dark hair matted with blood from a gash on her forehead, her right arm cradled against her chest, her breathing shallow and rapid. But it was her eyes that stopped him, cold, dark brown, intelligent, despite the pain, and filled with a terror that had nothing to do with the crash. "Please," she whispered, fingers clutching at his shirt as he knelt beside her. "Please, you have to help me. They're coming." "Easy," Michael said, his hands already assessing injuries with the efficiency of combat medicine. "You're safe. I'm going to help you." "No," she gasped, trying to sit up, crying out at the movement. "You don't understand. They'll kill me. They'll kill anyone who—" "Ma'am, you need to stay still. You might have internal injuries." But she gripped his arm with surprising strength, her eyes boring into his. "Are you alone here? Do you have family?" The question sent ice through his veins. "Why?" "Because if you help me, they'll come for you too." She coughed, specks of blood on her lips. I should keep running. I shouldn't involve—" "You're not running anywhere," Michael said firmly. He'd already made his assessment possible: concussion, dislocated shoulder, probable broken ribs, multiple lacerations. Without immediate care, she might not make it. "I'm taking you to my house." "You don't understand what you're doing," she said, but her protest was weak, her strength fading. Michael understood enough. The terror in her eyes wasn't from the crash. The SUV wasn't just any vehicle. He'd noted the bulletproof glass, the reinforced panels. This woman wasn't running from a bad relationship or financial troubles. She was running from something that required military-grade protection to escape. And she'd crashed a quarter-mile from his home. He made the decision that would change everything, the choice that would shatter his carefully constructed peace. He picked her up, her cry of pain cutting through him, and carried her toward his house. "What's your name?" he asked, partly to keep her conscious, partly because he needed to know who he was saving. "Rachel," she gasped against his shoulder. "Rachel Blackwood." The name hit him like a physical blow. Rachel Blackwood, he'd seen it even in his self-imposed isolation. Tech billionaire, founder of Nexus Systems, one of the richest women in America. And now she was bleeding in his arms, terrified of something bad enough to send her running into the Montana wilderness. The girls were watching from the window when he approached the house, their eyes wide with curiosity and concern. He saw them dart away from the glass as he climbed the porch steps, heard their rapid footsteps as they ran to unlock the door. "Daddy, who is she?" Emma asked, backing away as he entered. "Someone who needs help," he said simply. "Lily, get the extra medical kit from the bathroom. Emma, bring towels and the bottle of rubbing alcohol from under the sink." They scattered to their tasks while Michael laid Rachel on the couch, her blood immediately staining the fabric Sarah had chosen years ago. He worked quickly professionally, cutting away fabric to expose wounds, cleaning and assessing. Rachel drifted in and out of consciousness, mumbling things that made his concern grow references to betrayal, to evidence, to people in high places. When he relocated her shoulder, her scream brought both girls running, but they stopped in the doorway, trained not to interfere when Daddy was working. "Is she going to die?" Lily asked in a small voice. "No, sweetheart. She's hurt, but she'll be okay." "Why is she so dressed up?" Emma observed with 6-year-old directness. "Is she going to a party?" Despite everything, Rachel's lips quirked in what might have been a smile. "Was," she whispered. "Engagement party. Mine." Michael met her eyes, saw the bitter irony there. "Your fiancé did this, among others." She tried to sit up, gasped, fell back. "I need to leave. Every minute I'm here puts you in danger." "You're not going anywhere for at least a few days," Michael said firmly. 3 broken ribs, severe concussion, that shoulder needs to stay immobilized. Try to move and you could puncture a lung." "You don't understand." "I understand plenty." He stood towering over her, using his command presence for the first time in years. "I understand you're hurt. I understand you're scared. And I understand someone's after you. But right now you need to rest and heal. We'll deal with the rest later." Rachel stared at him, and he saw her reassessing, cataloging details, the military bearing. He couldn't quite hide the tactical efficiency of his medical treatment, the disciplined way his daughters responded to crisis. "Who are you?" she asked. "Michael Reynolds. This is my ranch. Those are my daughters, Emma and Lily." "But who are you really? Nobody provides combat medical treatment like that without training." He was quiet for a moment, then someone who left that life behind. "Now rest. Girls, let's give Miss Rachel some privacy." But Emma had crept closer, staring at Rachel with intense curiosity. "You're pretty even with blood on you," she announced. "Are you a princess, Emma?" Michael started to scold, but Rachel actually laughed, a broken sound that turned into a cough, but genuine. "No, sweetie. Just someone who made some very bad choices about who to trust." "Our mom died," Lily offered solemnly. "Daddy takes care of us now. He can take care of you too. He's really good at it." The innocent faith in those words seemed to break something in Rachel. Tears slid down her cheeks, mixing with the blood and dirt. "Thank you," she whispered. Michael ushered the girls out, setting them up with their afternoon lessons in the kitchen, where he could watch both them and Rachel. She slept fitfully occasionally, crying out her dreams, clearly dark. He found himself checking the windows more frequently, watching the road, the old paranoia creeping back. As the sun began its descent toward the mountains, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, Rachel woke with a start, immediately trying to rise, crying out at the pain. "Easy," Michael said, moving to her side. "You need to stay still." "My phone," she gasped. "Did you find my phone? No phone in the car or on you." "Good. Good, that's good. They were tracking it. I threw it out miles back." She focused on him with effort. "Mr. Reynolds, Michael. Michael, you need to know what you've gotten into. My fiancé, ex-fiancé, his name is David Chen. He's not just a tech executive. He's been selling classified information, our country's cyber defense systems, to the highest bidder. I found out 3 days ago. I have proof, but when I tried to go to the FBI..." She closed her eyes. "They were already there, waiting. Someone high up is involved. Someone who wanted me dead before I could expose them." Michael felt the old familiar tension, the combat readiness flooding back. "How many are after you?" "I don't know. David has resources, private military contractors, corrupt law enforcement, and whoever's protecting him in the government has even more. She gripped his hand with surprising strength. You have to understand, they'll kill anyone who helps me. You should take your daughters and leave. Tonight. I'll figure something out. You can barely breathe without pain. You're not figuring anything out. He stood pacing to the window, watching the road. How long before they track you here? I don't know. A day, maybe two. I destroyed my phone, paid cash for the SUV from a private seller 3 states over, disabled its GPS. But they have resources I probably can't imagine. Michael weighed options with the same cold calculation that had kept his team alive in Afghanistan. The smart move was to call the sheriff, hand her over, claim ignorance, keep his daughters safe, stay invisible. But he looked at Rachel, broken and terrified, on his couch, and saw something that changed everything. Not just fear, but determination. Despite everything, she was still fighting, still trying to do the right thing. Daddy, Emma appeared in the doorway. Is Miss Rachel staying for dinner? He made the decision that would shatter their peaceful life. Yes, sweetheart. She's staying. That night, after the girls were asleep, Michael sat with Rachel as she managed to eat some soup, her hands shaking with the effort. Tell me everything, he said, from the beginning. And she did. The story that emerged was worse than he'd imagined. David Chen, her business partner and fiancé of 2 years, had been using their company's government contracts to access classified systems. But it went deeper. Someone in the intelligence community was facilitating the theft, covering tracks, eliminating threats. I have evidence, she said. Hidden, encrypted files that prove everything, but I need to get them to someone trustworthy, and I don't know who that is anymore. Where are the files? Safety deposit box in Denver, under an alias. She gave a bitter laugh that turned into a painful cough. I was so careful, so paranoid, but not paranoid enough. Michael stood, walked to a hidden panel in the wall that the girls didn't know about, and removed a satellite phone, his one connection to his old life for emergencies only. What are you doing? Rachel asked, alarmed. Calling someone I trust. Someone outside the normal chains of command. No, you can't if they're monitoring. This phone is encrypted with protocols that don't officially exist, Michael said. And the person I'm calling owes me his life 3 times over. He dialed from memory. It rang twice before a gravelly voice answered. This better be the end of the fucking world, Reynolds. You know what time it is in Kabul. Marcus, I need a favor. Silence. Then Jesus. 3 years of nothing, and now you need a favor. This is going to be bad, isn't it? I need you to quietly check something. Rachel Blackwood Nexus Systems. Someone's trying to kill her, and she says it goes high up in our government. Rachel Black, holy shit, Mike. The billionaire, she's been all over the security briefings. They're saying she's involved in espionage, possible treason. There's a burn notice being prepared. Michael felt cold. A burn notice meant capture or kill, no questions asked. She's here, Marcus, at my place, and she's got evidence that her fiancé is the real traitor with help from someone in the intelligence community. Mike, brother, you need to ghost. Now. Take your girls and disappear. This is way above our pay grade. Since when do we abandon innocence, Marcus? A long sigh. God damn your heroic complex. All right, give me 6 hours. I'll shake some trees, see what falls out. But Mike, if this goes sideways, I don't know you. Understood. Understood. He hung up, turned to find Rachel watching him with those intelligent dark eyes. You were military, she said. It wasn't a question. Special Forces. Another lifetime. And now you're risking everything for a stranger. Now I'm doing what's right. He checked the windows again, a habit that was quickly returning. Get some rest. Tomorrow we need to move you to somewhere more secure. Where? I have a place. Off the books. But first we need to know what we're really dealing with. That night, Michael didn't sleep. He sat in the darkness, rifle across his lap, watching the road. Every sound made him tense: the wind, the normal creaks of the house, the distant howl of coyotes. His daughters slept peacefully upstairs, unaware that their world was about to change forever. At 3 a.m., headlights appeared on the road. Michael was moving before conscious thought, checking the load on his rifle, grabbing the go bags he always kept ready. Old habits that might save their lives. But the vehicle passed without slowing, just a rancher heading to early morning work. Not yet, but soon. At dawn, Marcus called back. You need to run, now. What did you find? It's worse than you know. The burn notice is already active. And Mike the signature on it. Deputy Director James Morrison, FBI Counterintelligence. Michael's blood turned to ice. That's impossible. I'm looking at it right now. Your cousin James, the golden boy of the family, wants your house guest dead or captured. And brother, he knows she was heading toward Montana. They're already mobilizing resources. You've got maybe 6 hours before they lock down the entire state. Michael hung up, his mind racing. James. His own blood. The cousin who'd chosen law enforcement while Michael chose military, who'd risen through the ranks with political acumen Michael never possessed. They'd been close once before Sarah's death, before Michael retreated from the world. Now James was hunting the woman bleeding on his couch. Girls, he called softly, heading upstairs. Wake up. We're going on an adventure. They came awake instantly, another trained behavior. In their young lives, adventure was code for move quickly and quietly, no questions. Where are we going, Daddy? Lily asked, already pulling on clothes. Camping. Remember the special place I showed you, where we practiced? Both girls nodded solemnly. They'd run emergency drills, made it a game, but they'd learned. How to pack quickly, move silently, follow instructions without hesitation. Within 20 minutes, his truck was loaded: supplies, weapons, medical equipment, everything they'd need for an extended stay off-grid. The girls helped Rachel to the vehicle, their small hands gentle but efficient. I'm sorry, Rachel whispered, as Michael lifted her into the back seat. I'm so sorry for bringing this to you. Save your strength, he said, but his tone was kind. We're going to get through this. As they drove away from the ranch, Emma looked back through the rear window. Are we coming home, Daddy? Michael met her eyes in the mirror, these precious girls who deserved honesty even when it hurt. I don't know, sweetheart. But we're going to be together, and we're going to be safe. That's what matters. The ranch disappeared behind them, this sanctuary he'd built, this place where they'd healed after Sarah's death. But Michael had learned long ago that safety was an illusion, that peace was temporary, that sometimes you had to fight for what mattered. As they climbed into the mountains toward the hideout he'd prepared but hoped never to use, Rachel spoke from the back seat. Your cousin, Morrison. I have files on him too. Communications with David, payments to offshore accounts. He's not just protecting David, they're partners. Michael's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Family, blood, betrayal. Then we take them both down, he said quietly. You don't have to. Yes, I do. He glanced at his daughters, who were quietly watching the scenery, trusting him completely. They threatened my children the moment they brought this to my door. That makes it personal. The road wound higher into the mountains, leaving civilization behind. Behind them, Michael knew the hunt was beginning. Black SUVs would be converging on his ranch, finding it empty. James would realize Michael had been warned, would know his cousin well enough to predict his moves. But James had never seen Michael in combat. Had never understood what happened when you threatened everything a soldier held dear. The ghost station, as Michael called it, was a cabin that didn't exist on any map built by his own hands over 2 years. Solar-powered with its own water source supplies for 6 months, and defensive positions that would make any assault costly. It sat in a valley accessible only by a single road that Michael had personally rigged with early warning systems. The nearest neighbor was 20 miles away through wilderness that would challenge even experienced trackers. "It's beautiful," Rachel breathed as they arrived, the noon sun illuminating the valley like a hidden paradise. "It's safe," Michael corrected, though he understood what she meant. The cabin sat beside a crystal-clear mountain lake surrounded by towering pines and peaks that scraped the sky. He carried Rachel inside while the girls automatically began their practiced routine, checking the solar batteries, testing the water pump, inventorying supplies. They made it a game, but their efficiency would have impressed his old unit. "How long have you been preparing for this?" Rachel asked as he settled her on a bed in the cabin's small medical room. "Since my wife died," he said simply. "I learned that the world can take everything from you in an instant. I swore it would never catch me unprepared again." She studied him with those sharp eyes. "You blame yourself for her death." "She was driving to pick me up from the airport, coming home from deployment. If I'd taken a different flight, if I'd rented a car instead—" "Stop." Rachel's voice was firm despite her weakness. "I've been running that same game for 3 days. If I hadn't trusted David, if I'd seen the signs earlier, if I'd been smarter, it'll eat you alive if you let it." Michael was quiet, checking her bandages, noting with satisfaction that the bleeding had stopped. "Daddy," Emma called from outside. "There are deer," normal childhood wonder even in the midst of flight. Michael moved to the window, watching his daughters watch the deer with pure joy. How long before that innocence was shattered? How long before they learned that monsters were real and sometimes wore familiar faces? His satellite phone buzzed. "Marcus. They found your ranch. Forensics team on site, full tactical support standing by. They know she was there, Mike. They found blood." "How long?" "Day, maybe 2, before they expand the search to your location. But Mike James is personally leading this. He's calling you armed and dangerous, saying you've been compromised by a foreign agent. He's painting you as a traitor." The irony was bitter. James, the actual traitor, using the machinery of justice to hunt the innocent. "There's more," Marcus continued. "I reached out to some friends in other agencies. This goes deep, brother. We're talking about systematic infiltration of our cyber defenses. If Rachel really has evidence, she does, then she's holding the key to the biggest intelligence breach since Snowden. They'll never stop hunting her. Or you." Michael ended the call, turned to find Rachel attempting to sit up. "I heard," she said. "I've destroyed your life. Your daughters will learn that their father stands for something," Michael interrupted. "That doing right isn't always safe or easy. You could still walk away. Leave me here with supplies, take your girls, disappear. They want me, not you. That's not how this works." He sat beside her bed, his presence solid, reassuring. "In my world, we don't leave people behind. Ever." Tears slid down her cheeks. "I don't deserve this. You don't even know me." "I know enough." He stood, moved to the door. "You fought to expose the truth even though it cost you everything. That takes courage most people don't have. That evening, as the girls helped prepare dinner, a simple meal of rice and beans from their supplies, Rachel managed to join them at the table. She moved carefully, painfully, but with determination. "Miss Rachel," Lily exclaimed, "you're better." "Getting there, sweetie." Rachel smiled, and Michael saw a glimpse of who she must have been before all this warm, genuine, the kind of person who built a billion-dollar company from nothing. "Do you have kids?" Emma asked with her characteristic directness. "No. I always thought, someday. When the company was more stable, when I found the right person." Her voice turned bitter. "I thought David was that person." "He sounds mean," Lily said. "Daddy says mean people are just scared people acting tough." Rachel laughed, wincing at the pain it caused. "Your daddy sounds very wise." "He's the smartest," Emma agreed. "He can fix anything, and he knows how to ride horses and shoot guns and make pancakes." "An impressive resume," Rachel said, catching Michael's eye with amusement. But the moment of normalcy shattered as one of Michael's perimeter alarms triggered a subtle beep from the monitoring system that made him immediately alert. "Girls, remember our camping rules," he said calmly. "Go to your special spot." Without hesitation, both girls rose and walked to what looked like a normal closet, but was actually a reinforced safe room stocked with supplies and communications equipment. Michael moved to the window using night vision scopes to scan the approach. Their movement in the trees. Not animals. The movement was too deliberate, too tactical. "They found us," he said quietly. Rachel struggled to stand. "How many, "At least 6. Professional formation." He moved efficiently, checking weapons, grabbing tactical gear he'd hoped never to wear again. "They're scouting, not assaulting. Yet. It doesn't make sense. How could they find us so quickly?" Michael's mind raced through possibilities, then landed on the ugly truth. "The blood. At my ranch. James has my DNA on file from military service. He could cross-reference, figure out I had property up here through shell companies." "Your own cousin. Power corrupts." He handed her a pistol. "Can you shoot?" "David insisted I learn." Ironic, right? Life's full of ironies. "Stay here, protect the girls if anyone gets past me." "You're going out there alone." "This is what I do." He checked his rifle, slipped extra magazines into his vest. "Was, anyway." "Michael." She caught his arm. "Be careful. My life isn't worth yours." "That's not your call to make." He slipped out the back door, becoming one with the darkness. 3 years of soft living fell away as muscle memory took over. The forest was his domain, every shadow, a potential ally, every sound a source of intelligence. The team was good, but not exceptional. Private military contractors he judged, not special operations. They moved in standard patterns, communicated with hand signals he could read from a distance. 6 men to take 1 wounded woman and a single defender. They were expecting easy prey. Michael smiled grimly. They were about to learn otherwise. He took the first one, silently approaching from behind, applying a blood choke until the man went limp. Zip-tied his hands and feet, removed his radio and weapons. 1 down. The second fell to a thrown knife, dropping with barely a sound. 2 down. But the third saw him manage to shout before Michael's fist connected with his throat. The alert was raised. "Contact northwest sector." Gunfire erupted, muzzle flashes lighting the forest like deadly fireflies. Michael moved between trees, returning fire, using superior knowledge of the terrain to outmaneuver them. "Fall back," someone shouted. "Regroup at the vehicles." They were retreating, but Michael knew it was temporary. They'd be back with more men, better equipment. This was just the probe testing defenses. He watched them load their wounded. He'd hit at least 2 more in the firefight and disappear down the mountain road. Then he collected the weapons and radios from the men he'd neutralized, both of whom were beginning to stir. "Wakey, wakey," he said, standing over them with his rifle ready. The first one, a scarred veteran with prison tattoos, spit at his feet. "You're dead, you know that. You're fucking dead." "Maybe, but not today." Michael studied them. "Who sent you?" "Go to hell." Michael shot him in the leg, the suppressed rifle making little sound. The man screamed. "Who sent you?" he repeated calmly. "Jesus fuck Morrison, okay. Deputy Director Morrison, FBI. And he knows we're here." "Not exactly. We were checking all your known properties. This place isn't on any official records, but the boss figured you might have a bolt hole." "How many teams?" The man stayed silent until Michael aimed at his other leg. 4 teams, 4. We were closest." Michael zip-tied them to trees where they'd be found, but couldn't escape, then returned to the cabin. Rachel was standing despite obvious pain, the pistol steady in her hands, positioned to defend the safe room. "It's me," he called before entering. She lowered the weapon, sagging against the wall. "Are you hurt?" "No, but we have maybe 6 hours before they come back with an army. We can't keep running. Eventually they'll corner us. Then we stop running." Michael opened the safe room, his daughters emerging, wide-eyed but calm. "We take the fight to them." "How?" "Those files you mentioned. The evidence. We're going to Denver to get them." "That's insane. It'll be crawling with agents." "Exactly. Last place they'd expect us to go." He turned to his daughters. "Girls, pack your special bags. We're going on another adventure." As they prepared to leave, Rachel pulled him aside. "Michael, I need you to promise me something." "What?" "If it comes to a choice between saving me and protecting your daughters, it won't come to that. Promise me." He met her eyes, saw the fierce determination there. "I promise." But even as he said it, Michael knew the truth that he'd found something worth fighting for again. Not just the principle of it, not just protecting the innocent, but Rachel herself, this brilliant, brave woman who'd risked everything to expose the truth. As they loaded into a different vehicle, an old SUV he'd kept hidden for emergencies, Emma asked, "Are we the good guys, Daddy?" "Yes, sweetheart. We're the good guys." "Is James the bad guy, even though he's family?" Michael started the engine, looking at his daughter in the mirror. "Sometimes, Emma, the people we trust most are the ones who hurt us worst. But that doesn't mean we stop doing what's right." They drove into the darkness toward Denver, toward danger, toward a confrontation that would determine not just their survival, but the fate of national security itself. Behind them, the cabin stood empty, a sanctuary abandoned. But Michael had learned something in his years of war, and lost home wasn't a place. It was the people you'd die to protect. And looking at his daughters, at Rachel trying to hide her pain, he knew he'd found his mission again. The hunter had become the hunted. But every hunter should remember the most dangerous prey is the one with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. The road to Denver stretched ahead, dark and full of threats. But Michael Reynolds, father, soldier, protector, accelerated into the night. The war had come home, and he was ready. The highway stretched before them like a dark ribbon through the Colorado mountains, each mile taking them closer to Denver and deeper into danger. Michael drove with practiced precision, constantly checking mirrors, varying his speed to avoid patterns that might attract attention. In the back seat, Rachel dozed fitfully against the window, while Emma and Lily slept curled together like puppies, their absolute trust in their father's protection allowing them peace even in flight. Michael's phone vibrated. Marcus again. "Talk to me," Michael said quietly, using his earpiece to avoid waking the others. "Brother, you've got serious problems. Morrison's mobilized half the FBI's Denver field office. They're watching every major route into the city. And Mike, they've classified you as a terrorist threat. Rules of engagement are shoot to kill." "They can't do that. I'm an American citizen, no warrant, no due process." "Since when has that stopped them officially? You don't exist right now. You're a ghost harboring a suspected foreign agent. They can do whatever they want." Michael's jaw tightened. This was the corruption Rachel had discovered, the rot that let men like James Morrison operate outside the law using America's security apparatus for personal gain. "There's something else," Marcus continued. "I did some digging on David Chen. He's not just selling information, he's been creating backdoors in every system Nexus touched. We're talking nuclear facilities, power grids, water treatment plants. If hostile actors gain control..." "Infrastructure warfare," Michael finished. "They could cripple the country without firing a shot." "Exactly. And Morrison's been covering it up for 2 years, taking his cut. Mike, if Rachel really has proof of this, she does, then you're not just fighting for your lives. You're fighting for national security." The weight of it settled on Michael's shoulders. He glanced in the mirror at Rachel, saw the burden she'd been carrying alone, understood why they wanted her dead so badly. "Marcus, I need another favor." "Jesus, Mike, I'm already risking. One more. There's an Inspector General investigator, Catherine Price, reputation for being incorruptible. Can you get word to her and tell her to be ready for a package that will blow her mind? If Morrison finds out I'm helping you, he won't. You're too careful. Besides, you owe me." "I owe you twice more after this," Marcus grumbled. "Fine, I'll reach out. But Mike, watch your six. Morrison knows you too well. He'll predict your moves." The call ended as they approached the outskirts of Denver, the city lights glowing like a false promise of safety in the pre-dawn darkness. Michael pulled into a truck stop, needing to refuel and reassess. The place was nearly empty, just a few long-haul truckers grabbing coffee before pushing on. "Stay in the car," he told Rachel, who was awake now, alert despite her exhaustion. "Keep the doors locked." He filled the tank, quickly paid cash inside, grabbed water and snacks for the girls. But as he exited the store, his instincts screamed danger. A black Suburban had pulled in, parking strategically to block their exit. 2 men got out, trying to look casual, but failing their tactical boots and concealed carry bulges gave them away. Michael moved naturally, not rushing, loading the supplies into the SUV. "Morning's coming early," he said conversationally to Rachel, through the window, their predetermined code for trouble. She understood immediately, sliding into the driver's seat, despite her injuries starting the engine. The girls stirred but didn't wake, conditioned to sleep through their father's vigilance. The 2 men were approaching now, hands hovering near their weapons. Michael recognized the type: contractors, not federal agents. Morrison was using deniable assets, maintaining plausible distance from what was about to happen. "Michael Reynolds," the lead one called out, still 20 feet away. "Sorry, friend. Name's Tom Morrison." Michael used his cousin's name deliberately, saw the confusion it caused. "You boys lost?" They exchanged glances, uncertain. The resemblance between Michael and James was strong enough to cause doubt. Same green eyes, same sharp features, though Michael was harder, leaner from his years of combat. "We're looking for someone," the second man said. "Woman, dark hair, injured. Seen anyone like that?" "Plenty of folks come through here," Michael replied, moving subtly to put the gas pump between them. "Though not many this early." The first man's hand moved to his weapon. We're going to need to see some ID. Sure thing. Michael reached for his wallet, then in one fluid motion grabbed the gas nozzle and sprayed both men with gasoline. They recoiled, cursing, temporarily blinded. Michael was on them before they could recover, striking the first man's throat, dropping him gasping. The second managed to clear his weapon, but Michael deflected it, the shot going wide, the sound enormous in the quiet morning. The fight was brief and vicious. These men were competent, but Michael was exceptional, driven by the need to protect his family. Within seconds, both were on the ground, unconscious or incapacitated, but the gunshot had drawn attention. A trucker emerged from the store, phone already out. Sirens would come soon, police who might be clean or might be Morrison's. "Drive," Michael said, jumping into the passenger seat. Rachel didn't hesitate, pulling out fast, but not recklessly, merging onto the highway as the first police cars passed them, going the opposite direction. "Daddy," Emma's voice, small and frightened. "Was that guns?" "Just a car backfiring, sweetheart. Go back to sleep." But she didn't, and neither did Lily. They sat quietly, holding hands, their childhood innocence cracking, but not yet shattered. Rachel drove with surprising skill, despite her injuries, following Michael's directions through Denver's industrial district. The morning sun painted the mountains golden, a beautiful lie over the ugly reality of their situation. "The bank opens at 9, Rachel said. 4 hours. We can't wait that long. They'll have every unit in the city looking for us. So what do we do?" Michael considered their options, his tactical mind running scenarios. Then he smiled grimly. "We hide in plain sight. Take the next exit." She did, following his guidance to a mid-range hotel near the Denver Tech Center, the kind of place that saw enough business travelers that strangers didn't stand out. "I don't have any clean ID," Rachel said. "They'll require, leave that to me." Michael pulled out a wallet she hadn't seen before, extracted credit cards and a driver's license. "Tom Morrison, remember? My cousin was kind enough to leave his backup documents at the family cabin years ago. You stole your cousin's identity, borrowed, and given what he's doing, I'd call it karma." They checked in without incident, the sleepy desk clerk barely glancing at the ID. The room was generic but clean, with 2 beds and a small sitting area. The girls immediately claimed one bed, bouncing slightly, before remembering they were supposed to be quiet. "Shower," Michael told Rachel. "You're covered in blood and dirt. It draws attention." She nodded, disappearing into the bathroom. Michael heard the water start, then a soft cry of pain as hot water hit her wounds. His hands clenched involuntarily. "Is Miss Rachel okay?" Lily asked. "She's hurt, baby, but she's strong. Like Mommy was." The question hit him unexpectedly. "Yeah, like Mommy." Emma studied him with those 2 wise eyes. "You like her. She needs our help." "That's not what I said." 6 years old and already too perceptive. Michael deflected by pulling out coloring books and crayons from their go-bags, setting the girls up at the small table. They colored quietly, but he caught them exchanging glances, conducting one of their wordless twin conversations. Rachel emerged from the bathroom, transformed. Clean, her dark hair damp, wearing fresh clothes from the supplies Michael had grabbed. She moved carefully, favoring her ribs, but with renewed energy. "Better?" he asked. "Much." She sat on the bed, wincing slightly. "What's the plan?" "We wait until 8:30, then hit the bank right when it opens. In and out before they can mobilize a response. They'll be watching the banks. The main branches, yes, but you said you used an alias. Different bank." She nodded. "Small credit union in Aurora. I set it up years ago, paranoid even then, about keeping things separate from David." Smart. Morrison won't have the manpower to cover every financial institution in the metro area. You keep calling him Morrison, not James. Michael was quiet for a moment, watching his daughter's color. James died the moment he threatened my children. What's left is just a target. The coldness in his voice made Rachel shiver. She'd seen him as the protective father, the reluctant hero. This was the soldier, the weapon he'd been before choosing peace. "Tell me about your wife," she said softly. "Sarah." The request surprised him. "Why?" "Because in all of this insanity, your daughters are remarkably well-adjusted. That doesn't happen by accident. She must have been extraordinary." Michael found himself talking something he rarely did, about meeting Sarah at a coffee shop near Fort Bragg, her laugh that could light up a room, her fierce protectiveness of their daughters, her patience with his deployments, and the darkness he brought home. "She made me better," he said simply. "Made me believe I could be more than just a weapon. And after she died, I retreated, built walls, told myself I was protecting the girls, but really I was hiding from the possibility of losing anything else." Rachel reached out, touched his hand briefly. "And now?" "Now I remember that hiding from life isn't living. Sarah would have kicked my ass for spending 3 years in isolation." Emma looked up from her coloring. "Daddy said a bad word." "Sorry, sweetheart." "Mommy would have made you put $1 in the swear jar," Lily added matter-of-factly. "Your mom sounds like she was wonderful," Rachel said to the girls. "She was the best," Emma agreed. "She smelled like cookies and read us stories with different voices for every character." "And she could sing," Lily added. "Daddy can't sing." "Thanks for that vote of confidence," Michael said dryly, but he was smiling. They settled into an oddly domestic rhythm, the girls coloring and chattering, Rachel dozing, Michael maintaining watch. It was a bubble of normalcy in the chaos, a glimpse of what life could be if they weren't being hunted. At 8:15, Michael's phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Go ahead," he answered cautiously. "Mr. Reynolds, this is Catherine Price, Inspector General's office. I received an interesting message about you." Michael tensed. This could be legitimate or a trap. "How do I know you're who you say you are?" Marcus said you'd ask that. "He also said to tell you that Kandahar was a Charlie Foxtrot, but you pulled his ass out anyway." Only Marcus would have known those details. "What do you want?" "To help if what I'm hearing is true. But I need proof, something concrete. Morrison has powerful friends. Without evidence, I can't move against him. We'll have it within the hour. Then I'll be waiting. Mr. Reynolds, be careful. Morrison has eyes everywhere. He's desperate, and desperate men do terrible things." The call ended. Michael looked at Rachel, who'd been listening. "Could be a trap," she said. "Could be. But we're running out of options. Every hour gives Morrison more time to tighten the noose." They prepared to leave Michael checking weapons, while Rachel helped the girls pack their coloring supplies. It was surreal, this mixture of domestic routine and deadly preparation. "I need you to stay here with the girls," Michael said. "Absolutely not. Rachel, the safety deposit box requires biometric scanning. My fingerprints, my retinal scan. You can't get in without me." He'd known this, but hoped otherwise. "Then the girls stay here." "Alone?" Rachel's voice pitched higher. "Michael, they're 6. They know how to hide, how to call for help if needed. It's safer than taking them into a potential firefight." It was an impossible choice, leave his daughters vulnerable or expose them to immediate danger. Emma solved it for him. "We'll be okay, Daddy. We'll stay in the bathroom like we practiced, and we won't open the door for anyone but you." "That's my brave girl." He knelt, pulling both daughters into a hug. 2 hours maximum. If we're not back, you call the number I taught you." "Uncle Marcus," Lily recited. "We know." He left them with tablets, snacks, and water. The bathroom door locked from inside the heavy dresser, pushed against the main door. It wasn't perfect, but it was the best he could manage. The drive to Aurora took 20 minutes, Michael constantly checking for surveillance, doubling back twice to shake any potential tails. The credit union sat in a strip mall sandwiched between a nail salon and a tax preparation office. "Looks clear," he said, but his instincts were screaming. It was too quiet, too normal. They entered together, Rachel leaning on him as if injured, which she was, though she tried to hide the extent of her pain. The bank was nearly empty, just 2 tellers and a manager visible. "I need to access my safety deposit box," Rachel told the teller, providing her alias documentation. The process seemed to take forever, forms to fill out, signatures to verify, the biometric scanners that confirmed her identity. Finally, they were led to a small private room where Rachel's box waited. Inside were 3 flash drives and a stack of documents. "Everything's here," she breathed. Financial records, communications between David and Morrison, the backdoor codes, even recordings of them discussing the operation. "Good. Let's go." But as they exited the viewing room, Michael saw them 2 men in suits by the entrance, 2 more coming through the back. Federal agents, not contractors this time. "Walk normally," he murmured to Rachel. "We're just another couple doing banking." They made it 5 steps before one of the agents looked their way, recognition flashing across his face. "Federal agents, nobody move." The bank erupted in screams as customers hit the floor. Michael pushed Rachel behind a pillar as guns were drawn. "Michael Reynolds, you're under arrest for terrorism, kidnapping, and conspiracy against the United States." "Funny," Michael called back. "I don't see any warrants or badges, just Morrison's cleanup crew." "Come out with your hands up. This doesn't have to end badly." Michael laughed, harsh and bitter. "It already has. You're protecting traitors while hunting patriots." He pulled a smoke grenade from his jacket, always prepared, and threw it toward the agents. The bank filled with thick gray smoke as alarms shrieked. In the chaos, Michael grabbed Rachel, and they ran bursting through the emergency exit into the alley behind the strip mall. A black SUV screeched around the corner, bearing down on them. Michael shoved Rachel aside and drew his pistol, putting 3 rounds through the windshield. The vehicle swerved, crashing into a dumpster. They ran through backyards, over fences, Rachel gasping with pain, but not slowing. Behind them, shouts and sirens grew closer. "There!" Michael pointed to a minivan parked beside a house, engine running, while someone loaded groceries. "Sorry about this," he muttered, jumping in and throwing it in gear before the shocked owner could react. They peeled out, Rachel clutching the evidence to her chest, both breathing hard. "The girls," she gasped. "We have to get back to the girls." But as they approached the hotel, Michael's worst fears materialized. Police cars surrounded the building, SWAT vehicles deploying tactical teams. "No," he breathed, fury and terror warring in his chest. His phone rang. Morrison. "Hello, cousin." James's voice was smooth, confident. "Missing something. If you've hurt them. They're fine for now. Sweet girls, very well behaved. They keep asking for their daddy." Michael's hand gripped the phone so tight it creaked. "What do you want?" "You know what I want. The woman and whatever she took from that bank. 1 hour, the old warehouse district on Vasquez. Come alone or your daughters learn what happens when someone crosses me." "James." 1 hour, Michael. Don't be late." The line went dead. Michael sat frozen, his world collapsing into a singular point of rage and fear. "Michael," Rachel said softly, "we'll get them back. He has my daughters." His voice was barely human. "He has my little girls." and we have what he wants. We can... No. Michael turned to her, his eyes cold as Arctic ice. We're going to give him exactly what he deserves. He pulled out his phone, called Marcus. I need everything you can get me on the warehouse district. Building layouts, tactical positions, everything. Mike, what's happening? James has my daughters. Silence. Then that son of a bitch crossed the line. What do you need? A miracle. And backup that won't ask questions. I know some people. Give me 30 minutes. Michael drove toward the warehouse district, his mind shifting into combat mode. The father's terror was locked away, replaced by the cold calculation of a special operations commander. You're not really going to trade me for them, Rachel said. No, I'm going to get my daughters back and end this. How? By remembering what I really am. He glanced at her. Not a rancher, not a grieving widower. I'm a weapon, and James just pulled my trigger. The warehouse district loomed ahead, abandoned buildings like tombstones against the Denver skyline. Somewhere in that maze his daughters waited. Emma and Lily, who trusted him completely, who believed their daddy could fix anything. He would not let them down, even if it meant becoming the monster he'd tried to leave behind. The hunt was about to become war. The warehouse district stretched before them like a graveyard of Denver's industrial past, rusted metal and broken windows catching the afternoon sun. Michael parked the stolen minivan 3 blocks from the designated meeting point, his trained eye already mapping tactical positions, escape routes, and potential kill zones. Beside him, Rachel clutched the bag containing the evidence, her knuckles white with tension. Stay here, he said, checking his weapons one final time. The familiar weight of his pistol, the knife in his boot, the smoke grenades in his jacket, tools of a trade he'd thought abandoned. Michael, you can't go in there alone. It's obviously a trap. Of course it's a trap. But James made one mistake. He thinks he knows me. He remembers the soldier who followed orders, who believed in the system. He doesn't know what I became after Sarah died. His phone buzzed. Marcus had sent building schematics, aerial photos, and a simple message. 2 friends inbound. Trust them. I'm coming with you, Rachel insisted, struggling to stand despite her injuries. No. You're our insurance policy. He handed her a burner phone. If I'm not back in 45 minutes, call Catherine Price. Give her everything. Then disappear. What about Emma and Lily? I'm getting them back. The certainty in his voice was absolute. James wants to play games with my children's lives. He's about to learn that some lines should never be crossed. Michael moved through the industrial decay with predatory grace, every shadow a potential ally, every sound analyzed and catalogued. The main warehouse sat in the center of the complex, its loading dock doors open like a mouth waiting to swallow him whole. Too obvious. James would have secondary positions overlapping fields of fire. Their movement in the building to his left. A sniper poorly concealed. Another on the right, better hidden but betrayed by the glint of his scope. Michael smiled grimly. James had brought adequate firepower but not adequate talent. These were FBI HRT members, well-trained but not combat-tested. They'd done hostage rescue drills, not lived through actual firefights where the enemy shot back with equal skill. Michael circled wide, using demolished equipment and rusted shipping containers for cover. The sniper on the left never saw him coming. A silent approach, a blood choke held until the man went limp, zip-tied, and left unconscious. 1 down. The tactical radio he lifted crackled to life. Position 2, report. Michael keyed the mic twice, the universal signal for all clear. It would buy him minutes, maybe less, but in combat seconds could determine victory. He was moving toward the second sniper when he heard it. Emma's voice high and frightened, echoing from the main warehouse. "Daddy! Daddy, help!" Every instinct screamed at him to charge forward, but Michael forced himself to remain tactical. James was using his daughters as bait, trying to make him emotional careless. The second sniper had to be neutralized first. This one was better, constantly checking his six, maintaining good positioning. But he was focused on the approaches to the main warehouse, not expecting danger from behind. Michael waited for a cargo train to rumble past on the nearby tracks, using the noise to mask his approach. The takedown was swift and silent, though the man managed to key his radio before unconsciousness took him. "Contact position 3 is..." The radio erupted in chatter. They knew he was here, knew he was hunting them. Good. Fear would make them sloppy. Michael approached the main warehouse from an angle they wouldn't expect, through a collapsed section of roof that required climbing skills most people didn't possess. Inside the space was vast and shadowed dust motes, dancing in shafts of sunlight from broken skylights. In the center, a clear area had been established, tables with monitors, communications equipment, and there his daughters. Emma and Lily sat on folding chairs, hands zip-tied in front of them, tears streaming down their faces, but otherwise unharmed. Around them stood 6 men in tactical gear, weapons ready, and behind them James Morrison in his expensive suit, looking every inch the successful federal official rather than the traitor he was. 40 minutes, Michael," James called out, his voice echoing in the space. "You're early. Come on out. Let's discuss this like civilized men." Michael remained hidden, evaluating. 6 plus James. But there would be more backup positions he couldn't see. The girls were too exposed, any firefight would put them at risk. "I know you're here," James continued. "Phillips and Martinez aren't responding, so I assume you've already started your one-man war. But look at your daughters, cousin. Look at their faces. Is your pride worth their lives?" Emma lifted her head, and even from distance Michael could see her searching the shadows. Looking for him, believing he would save them because he always had. "Here's the deal," James announced. "You and Blackwood surrender, and your girls go free. Foster care will ensure they're looked after. They'll have normal lives, forget all about their terrorist father." "Terrorist?" Michael's voice emerged from shadows, seeming to come from everywhere, at once a trick of acoustics he'd learned in Afghanistan caves. "That's rich, coming from a man selling out his country for money." "Money?" James laughed. "You always were too simple, Michael. This is about power. About understanding that the old world order is dying. China, Russia, they're the future. I'm just ensuring I'm on the winning side. By betraying everything you swore to protect. By being realistic. The American empire is crumbling. Smart men make arrangements." Michael moved silently through the rafters, noting positions angles, the way James's men were clustered, a tactical error born of overconfidence. "You know what your problem is, Michael? You still believe in fairy tales. Honor duty country. Sarah believed in them too, and where did it get her? Dead on a highway, while you played soldier." The rage that flooded through Michael was volcanic, but he channeled it, focused it. James was trying to provoke him into doing something stupid. "At least she died with honor," Michael replied, his voice now coming from a different position, causing the tactical team to shift nervously. "Can you say the same when your time comes? My time, I'm holding all the cards here." "Are you?" The lights went out. Marcus's friends had arrived. In the darkness, Michael moved. His eyes, already adjusted from being in shadows, tracked the tactical lights as James's men switched them on, making themselves perfect targets. He dropped from the rafters onto one, taking him down hard, appropriating his weapon. The man's night vision goggles became Michael's advantage. Gunfire erupted, muzzle flashes strobing like deadly lightning. But it was chaos, James's men firing at shadows while Michael picked them off with methodical precision. 1 down. 2. 3. "Get those lights back on!" James screamed. Emergency lighting flickered to life, casting everything in a hellish red glow. Michael saw James had pulled Emma against him, using her as a shield, his pistol pressed to her temple. "Stop," James commanded. "Stop, or I kill her." Michael froze his weapon, trained on his cousin, but unable to take the shot without risking Emma. His daughter's eyes were wide with terror, tears streaming down her face. "That's better," James said, breathing hard. "Now drop the weapon." "Daddy," Emma whimpered. "It's okay, sweetheart. Everything's going to be okay." "Touching," James sneered. "Drop the weapon, Michael, now." Michael set the rifle down, kicked it away, but his hand moved to his jacket, to the smoke grenade there. "Don't even think about it," James warned, pressing the gun harder against Emma's temple, making her cry out. That small sound of pain from his daughter snapped something in Michael. But before he could move, another voice cut through the tension. "Federal agents, everyone freeze." Catherine Price entered with a full tactical team, weapons drawn, badges visible. Real federal agents, not Morrison's corrupt puppets. "Deputy Director Morrison, you're under arrest for treason, conspiracy, and kidnapping." James's laugh was bitter. "You have no authority here, Price. This is a national security operation." "Actually, I do." She held up a document. "Emergency warrant signed by a federal judge 10 minutes ago. Ms. Blackwood's evidence was very compelling." Michael's eyes flicked to the entrance where Rachel stood, supported by 2 of Marcus's friends, former special operations soldiers, who'd answered the call. She'd ignored his instructions, contacted Price early, set this counter-trap. "You're all fools," James snarled. "You have no idea what you're interfering with. The people I work for are going to let you burn," Price interrupted. "You're a liability now, Morrison. They've already disavowed you." James's face went pale as he realized the truth. In this game, there was no loyalty among traitors. His partners would sacrifice him without hesitation. "No," he said, his weapon wavering. "No, I'm not going down alone. If I burn, everyone burns." Michael saw it in his cousin's eyes, the moment when desperation became murderous intent. James's finger tightened on the trigger. Michael moved. The knife left his hand before conscious thought, years of muscle memory guiding it true. It struck James's wrist, making him drop the weapon with a scream. Michael crossed the distance in 2 strides, pulling Emma away, shielding both his daughters with his body, as Price's team swarmed James. "Daddy!" Both girls buried themselves against him, sobbing with relief. "I've got you," he whispered, holding them tight. "I've got you. You're safe." James was on the ground, Price's team restraining him, but his eyes found Michael's. "This isn't over. You have no idea what you've started. They'll come for you, for your girls, for everyone you love." "Let them come," Michael said quietly. "I'll be ready." As James was dragged away, still shouting threats and promises of retribution, Michael felt a hand on his shoulder. Rachel stood there, battered but unbowed. "You okay?" she asked. "I should be asking you that. You were supposed to wait." "I don't follow orders well. Character flaw." She managed to smile despite the pain evident in her eyes. "Besides, you needed backup." Emma looked up at Rachel with wonder. "You saved us." "Your daddy saved you. I just made some phone calls." "With evidence that's going to reshape national security," Price interjected, approaching them. "Ms. Blackwood, Mr. Reynolds, we need to get you somewhere safe for debriefing." "How safe?" Michael asked, still holding his daughters. "Witness protection safe." Morrison was right about one thing: he wasn't working alone. Until we unravel this entire network, you're all in danger. Michael looked at his girls, at Rachel, then back at Price. No. I'm sorry. No witness protection. We've been running hiding. It stops now. Mr. Reynolds, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. My daughters deserve a life, not another cage, even a protective one. He stood, lifting both girls easily. We'll cooperate, provide testimony, whatever you need. But we do it on our terms. Price studied him, this man who'd taken down a corrupt deputy director and his team virtually single-handed. What terms? First, full immunity for Rachel and myself for any actions taken during this situation. Done. Second, Morrison's assets, the ones he gained through treason, they go to a trust for my daughter's education. I can make that happen. Third, we choose where we live, how we live. You provide security consultation, but we maintain our autonomy. Price smiled slightly. You'd have made a good lawyer, Mr. Reynolds. I make a better soldier. Do we have a deal? She extended her hand. Deal. As they shook, Lily tugged on Michael's shirt. Daddy, can we go home now? Michael looked at the warehouse, at the evidence of violence and betrayal, then at his daughters' innocent faces. The ranch is compromised, sweetheart. We can't go back there. Then where will we live? Emma asked. It was Rachel who answered, her voice soft but certain. Somewhere new. Somewhere you can have horses and see mountains and be safe. Will you come with us? Lily asked her with the directness of childhood. Rachel looked at Michael, a question in her eyes. He saw in that moment all the possibilities, all the potential for something beyond survival. A future that might include healing hope, maybe even happiness. If your daddy says it's okay, Rachel said carefully. Michael thought of Sarah, of what she'd want for him, for their daughters. She'd want them to live, not just exist. To embrace life, not hide from it. I think that would be good, he said, earning delighted squeals from his daughters and a smile from Rachel that transformed her exhausted face. Price cleared her throat. Touching as this is, we need to move. Morrison's arrest is going to trigger reactions throughout his network. The next 24 hours will be critical. They moved as a group toward the warehouse exit, Price's team forming a protective perimeter. Michael carried both his daughters, their arms wrapped around his neck, their faith in him absolute and restored. Rachel walked beside them, the bag of evidence that had started everything still clutched in her hand. Mr. Reynolds, Price said as they reached the vehicles, for what it's worth, your country owes you a debt. My country owes me nothing, Michael replied. I did this for them. He kissed his daughters' heads. Everything else was just noise. As they drove away from the warehouse district, Emma asked, Daddy, was James really bad? Michael considered how to answer, how to explain betrayal and corruption to 6-year-olds who just lived through trauma. Sometimes, he said finally, people lose their way. They forget what's important, what's right. James forgot. But you didn't, Lily said confidently. No, sweetheart. I didn't. Because of us. Because of you, he agreed. You and your sister are my compass. You always point me toward what's right. Rachel reached over, squeezed his hand briefly. They're lucky to have you. We're lucky to have each other, he corrected, including her in the statement. The safe house Price took them to was a modest suburban home, unremarkable from the outside but equipped with state-of-the-art security. As the girls explored their temporary new home with the resilience of children, Michael stood on the back porch with Rachel watching the sun set over Denver. What happens now? She asked. Now we testify. We help Price tear down the network James and David built. We make sure this can't happen again. And after, he turned to her, this woman who'd crashed into his life and shattered his carefully constructed isolation. After we see what's possible when we're not running for our lives. I cost you everything, she said quietly. Your home, your peace, your anonymity. You gave me something more important. What purpose? For 3 years I've been sleepwalking, going through the motions. You woke me up. She laughed, wincing at her still healing ribs. By bleeding all over your couch. By reminding me that there are things worth fighting for beyond just survival. From inside came the sound of his daughters laughing at something on television, the normal sound of childhood that had been too absent lately. They're remarkable, Rachel said. After everything they've been through, they're still able to laugh. Kids are resilient, and they knew I'd come for them. How could they be so sure? Michael watched the last rays of sun paint the mountains gold. Because I promised their mother I'd always protect them. And I keep my promises. All your promises. Rachel asked something deeper in the question. He thought of the promise he'd made to himself after Sarah's death, to never care again, never risk the pain of loss. But looking at Rachel, at the strength she'd shown, the way his daughters had already accepted her, he realized some promises were meant to be broken. The ones that matter, he said. Inside Price was coordinating the investigation that would unravel one of the largest espionage conspiracies in American history. David Chen was arrested trying to flee the country. Dozens of corrupted officials would be exposed in coming weeks. The back doors in critical infrastructure would be closed, catastrophe averted. But for Michael, standing with Rachel as his daughters played inside, none of that mattered as much as this moment. They'd survived. They were together. They had a chance at something new. The war wasn't over. There would be trials, testimony, the constant vigilance needed to ensure their safety. But for the first time in 3 years, Michael felt something he'd thought lost forever. Hope. As darkness fell over Denver, he pulled Rachel inside, closing the door on the chaos of the day. Emma and Lily ran to them, talking excitedly about the house, about their plans, about a future that once again seemed possible. Michael Reynolds, soldier, father protector, looked at these 3 people who'd become his world and made a new promise, not to the memory of his dead wife, or to abstract concepts of duty and honor, but to himself. He would live. Not just survive, but truly live. And maybe, just maybe, he'd teach them all to do the same. The hunter had become the protector once more. But this time he wasn't protecting just his daughters. He was protecting the future they'd all build together. The weeks that followed James Morrison's arrest unfolded like a carefully orchestrated symphony of justice and revelation. Michael sat in the federal courthouse in downtown Denver, his testimony methodical and damning, each word another nail in his cousin's coffin. Across the courtroom, James watched with eyes that burned with hatred and something else, fear. The network he'd built was collapsing, and with it the protection he'd enjoyed. Rachel's testimony was even more devastating. She presented the evidence with the same precision that had built her billion-dollar company, walking the jury through financial records, encrypted communications, and technical specifications that proved the depth of the conspiracy. Every backdoor David Chen had installed, every system compromised, every payment to Morrison, it all came to light. Ms. Blackwood, the prosecutor asked, during a particularly intense session, "Can you explain to the jury what would have happened if these back doors had been activated?" Rachel's voice was steady, professional, but Michael could see the weight she carried. Complete infrastructure collapse, power grids, water treatment facilities, air traffic control, financial systems, all of it would have been accessible to hostile foreign actors. We're talking about the potential for millions of casualties, without a single conventional weapon being fired. The courtroom was silent, the magnitude of what had been prevented settling over everyone present. During a recess, Michael found Rachel standing alone on a courthouse balcony, looking out at the Denver skyline. She'd traded her designer clothes for simple, practical attire, but she still carried herself with the quiet strength that had first caught his attention. "You did good in there," he said, joining her at the railing. "Did I? Sometimes I wonder if any of this matters. David's lawyers are already spinning narratives claiming I was the mastermind, that I'm framing him out of jealousy. The evidence speaks for itself. Evidence can be twisted. You know that." She turned to him, exhaustion evident in her features. "How are the girls?" Asking when you're coming for dinner again. Despite everything, she smiled. Over the past weeks, Rachel had become a regular presence in their lives, helping with homework, teaching the girls about computers and technology, slowly becoming part of their routine. "They're resilient," she said. "They like you. The feeling's mutual." She paused, seemed to gather herself. "Michael, I've been thinking about what happens after this. Oh, my company is gone. My reputation is in shambles despite being the victim. I have money hidden away enough to start over, but..." She trailed off, looking back at the city. "I don't know where to start over." Michael knew what she was really asking. These weeks of shared danger and recovery had created something between them, something neither had expected or sought, but couldn't deny. "The girls and I are looking at property in Wyoming," he said carefully. "Similar to Montana, but far enough away to truly start fresh. Lots of land, good schools nearby if we decide against homeschooling mountains for days." Sounds perfect for a former Special Forces operator and his daughters. Could be perfect for a tech genius looking to build something new too. Rural areas desperately need better internet infrastructure, better educational technology. Someone with your skills could make a real difference. She looked at him, searching his face. "Is that an invitation?" "It's an observation. What you do with it is up to you." Before she could respond, Catherine Price appeared in the doorway. "We have a problem." They followed her to a secure conference room where monitors displayed news feeds from around the world. Chinese state media was denouncing the arrests, calling them a fabricated conspiracy to damage China-American relations. Russian outlets were suggesting the entire thing was an internal American power struggle. "Morrison's handlers are pushing back," Price explained. "They're trying to muddy the waters, create enough doubt to compromise the prosecution." "What do you need from us?" Michael asked. "More than testimony. We need to expose the full network, and that means taking risks." She pulled up a schematic on one monitor. "This is David Chen's main server farm located in international waters on a cargo ship. It contains the master files, the complete record of every transaction, every communication, every operative involved." "You want us to retrieve it?" Michael said. It wasn't a question. "I want you to consider it. Officially, the U.S. government can't board a vessel in international waters without cause. Unofficially, if those servers were to somehow end up in our possession..." "That's insane," Rachel interjected. "You're asking us to commit an act of piracy." "I'm not asking anything. I'm simply observing that a ship will be in a particular location at a particular time, and that if certain materials were to appear, we could use them." Price stood to leave. "Think about it. But think fast. The ship leaves port in 72 hours. After she left, Michael and Rachel sat in silence for a moment. "You're considering it," Rachel said. It wasn't accusatory, just an observation. "Those servers could end this definitively. No more looking over our shoulders, no more wondering when the next attack will come. It could also get you killed." Everything worth doing carries that risk. She stood abruptly. I need to think. I'll see you tonight for dinner with the girls. But that night, Rachel didn't show. Michael tried her phone, but it went straight to voicemail. Worry gnawed at him as he tucked his daughters into bed, their questions about Rachel's absence harder to answer than any cross-examination. At midnight, his secure phone rang. Marcus. Your girl's been busy, his old friend said without preamble. What do you mean, Ma? She hired a team, mercenaries but good ones. She's going after that ship herself. Michael felt ice in his veins. When? They left an hour ago. Mike, she left you a message. Said to tell you she couldn't let you risk your daughter's father. Said they'd already lost enough. Michael stood in his kitchen phone pressed to his ear, rage and fear warring in his chest. Rachel was trying to protect him, but she had no idea what she was walking into. A billionaire playing soldier would get herself and her team killed. Where's the ship now? He asked. Coordinates coming to you. But Mike, you can't. Watch the girls. I don't care what you have to do, get here and watch my daughters. You're going after her. I'm going to save her from her own nobility. Mike, she's part of this family now, whether she admits it or not. And we don't leave family behind. 3 hours later, Michael stood on the deck of a speedboat cutting through dark waters toward the cargo ship's last known position. He'd called in favors, promised markers, done whatever it took to get here. The team with him was small but elite, 2 former SEALs who owed him their lives, men who understood that some missions transcended legal authority. Target bearing 270, one called out. Looks like someone's already having a party. Through night vision, Michael could see muzzle flashes on the ship's deck. Rachel's team had engaged, but something had gone wrong. The defensive response was too coordinated, too prepared. It's a trap, he realized. They knew she was coming. Orders, his teammate asked. We go in hot. Priority is extraction of friendlies and securing those servers. Roger that. They approached from the ship's blind spot, using magnetic climbers to scale the hull in silence. On deck, the situation was worse than Michael had feared. Rachel's mercenary team was pinned down behind shipping containers, taking fire from elevated positions. Bodies already littered the deck, at least 2 of her people down. And there, behind inadequate cover, was Rachel herself, trying to apply pressure to a wounded mercenary's bleeding leg, while rounds sparked off the metal around her. Michael moved like death itself through the shadows. The first hostile never saw him coming, the knife finding the gap in his body armor. The second managed a strangled cry before Michael's arm locked around his throat. By the time the defenders realized they were being flanked, it was too late. Displacing! Michael called out. In the brief silence after his initial assault, not wanting Rachel's team to mistake him for enemy. Michael? Rachel's voice disbelieving. What are you, how? Save it for later. Can your wounded move? Negative. Femoral artery hit. He needs immediate evac. Michael assessed quickly. They were outnumbered 3-1 wounded to evacuate, and the servers were still somewhere in the ship's hold. Johnson Rodriguez, establish overwatch. Suppress those elevated positions. His teammates moved without question, their fire immediately relieving pressure on Rachel's position. You, he pointed to one of Rachel's surviving mercenaries. Get your wounded to our boat east side low deck. Move. The servers, Rachel protested as Michael reached her position, are worthless if you're dead. He grabbed her arm, noting the blood on her sleeve, her own, not the wounded man's. You're hit. Just a graze. Rachel, I couldn't let you risk everything. The words exploded out of her. Emma and Lily already lost their mother. I couldn't be responsible for them losing you too. So you decided to play hero. His anger was hot, immediate. You hired second-rate mercenaries and walked into an obvious trap. They weren't second-rate. They were betrayed. Someone on our side leaked this. The implications hit Michael like a physical blow. The conspiracy went deeper than even Morrison. We need those servers, Rachel insisted. Without them, we'll never know how deep this goes. Michael looked at her brilliant, brave, foolish Rachel, who'd risked everything to protect him and his daughters. He made a decision that his tactical mind screamed against. Johnson Rodriguez were going below. Hold this position. Roger that, boss. Clock's ticking, though. We've got maybe 10 minutes before their reinforcements arrive. Michael pulled Rachel to her feet. Can you move? Yes. Then stay behind me and do exactly what I say. They descended into the ship's bowels emergency lighting, casting everything in hellish red. The server room was exactly where the schematics indicated, but it was guarded by 4 men in full tactical gear. Flashbang, Michael whispered, pulling the grenade from his vest. Close your eyes. Cover your ears. The explosion of light and sound was overwhelming, even with warning. Michael moved in its wake, muscle memory and training taking over. 2 hostiles down before they could recover the third, managing to raise his weapon before Michael's rounds found him. The 4th tried to destroy the servers, spraying them with automatic fire, but Rachel tackled him, her laptop bag swinging with surprising force. Michael finished it with clinical efficiency, then turned to the servers. Half were destroyed, drives shattered by bullets. Can you salvage anything? He asked. Rachel was already at work, pulling drives connecting her laptop. Give me 3 minutes. We don't have 3 minutes. Then give me 2. Gunfire echoed from above. Johnson and Rodriguez were being pressed hard. Michael could hear boots on metal reinforcements flooding the ship. Rachel, got it. She shoved drives into her bag. Not everything, but enough. The financial records, the communication logs, the operative lists. Move. They ran through corridors as the ship became a war zone. Michael led them not toward the main deck, but toward the stern, where emergency lifeboats hung. Our boat's the other way, Rachel protested. Already compromised. We improvise. They burst onto the stern deck to find chaos. Chen's reinforcements had arrived, 2 more boats disgorging armed men. Johnson and Rodriguez had fallen back, fighting a running retreat toward their position. Lifeboat, Michael ordered, practically throwing Rachel toward it. Get it ready. He laid down, covering fire, as his teammates reached them, both wounded but mobile. Servers, Rodriguez asked, blood streaming from a gash on his forehead. Secured. Everyone in the boat. But as they prepared to lower it, a figure emerged from the smoke and chaos. David Chen himself, dressed in tactical gear, pointing a rifle at them. Rachel, he said, his voice carrying despite the noise. My dear, brilliant Rachel, you should have taken my offer. We could have ruled the digital world together. You mean you could have used me to build your empire while selling out our country? She replied, standing, despite Michael's attempt to keep her down. Our country. David laughed. Nations are obsolete. Information is the only currency that matters now. You're wrong, Rachel said. People matter. Loyalty matters. Love matters. Love, David's weapon swung toward Michael. Is that what this is? You threw away everything for some washed-up soldier and his brats. Michael saw Rachel's hand move to her pocket, saw the small pistol he'd given her emerge. But David saw it too, his rifle swinging back toward her. Time slowed. Michael moved, putting himself between Rachel and David as both weapons fired. He felt the impact, the punch of rounds hitting his vest, one finding the gap, tearing through flesh. But his own weapon was already up, a double tap that sent David stumbling backward over the rail into the dark water below. Michael! Rachel caught him as he fell, blood spreading across his shirt. No, no, no! Get the boat launched! He gasped, the pain starting to register. Johnson was already on it, the lifeboat hitting water, as Rodriguez laid down, suppressing fire. They tumbled into it as bullets sparked off the ship's hull above them, the small motor roaring to life. Michael tried to focus through the pain, keeping pressure on the wound, while Rachel drove the boat with desperate determination. Behind them, the cargo ship erupted in flames. Someone had decided to destroy all evidence, servers and all. "Stay with me," Rachel pleaded, tears streaming down her face. "Don't you dare leave those girls. Don't you dare leave me." "Not going anywhere," he managed, though the darkness was creeping in at the edges of his vision. The last thing he saw before unconsciousness took him was Rachel's face, fierce with determination, and behind her the lights of the Coast Guard vessels Marcus had somehow summoned racing toward them. He woke in a hospital room flooded with sunlight. The first thing he saw was Emma and Lily curled up on chairs they'd pushed together, coloring quietly. The second was Rachel standing by the window, her arm in a sling, talking quietly on the phone. "Daddy." Emma noticed his eyes were open first, launching herself toward the bed before remembering to be gentle. "You were asleep forever." 3 days, Lily corrected, joining her sister. "Miss Rachel said you were very tired from being a hero." "Miss Rachel exaggerates," he said, his voice rough. Rachel ended her call, came to the bedside. Her eyes were red-rimmed, exhausted, but relieved. "That was Price," she said. "The servers we recovered were enough. Chen's body washed ashore this morning. Morrison's cutting a deal, giving up everyone in exchange for life instead of execution. It's over." "Is it?" She sat on the edge of his bed, careful not to jostle him. "The conspiracy is done. The trials will continue for months, but the threat is neutralized." "That's not what I meant." She understood, as he knew she would. "The girls and I have been talking about Wyoming, about ranches and horses and mountains, about starting over. And Lily thinks we should get chickens. Emma wants a dog. They both insist you need someone to make sure you don't do anything else stupidly heroic. And what do you think?" Rachel looked at his daughters, then back at him. "I think family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about the people who show up when everything goes wrong. The people who risk everything to save you from your own mistakes." "Is that a yes?" "That's a yes." Emma and Lily cheered, hugging both of them carefully. Michael felt something settle in his chest that had nothing to do with his healing wound. This patchwork family born from violence and conspiracy felt more real than anything had since Sarah's death. "There's one more thing," Rachel said, pulling out a tablet. "I've been working while you were unconscious. Using some of the offshore accounts we traced from Morrison and Chen, legally seized assets that Price helped redirect. I've established a foundation for the families of the mercenaries who died on that ship, for improved cybersecurity training for federal agencies, and," she paused, "for a therapeutic ranch program for children who've lost parents in service to their country." Michael stared at her, this remarkable woman who'd taken tragedy and transformed it into purpose. "Sarah would have loved that," he said quietly. "I hope so. I've been thinking about her a lot. About the life you built together, the girls you raised. I'm not trying to replace her." "You're not," Michael interrupted. "You're not replacing anything, you're adding to it. Sarah would understand that. She'd want that." Price arrived that afternoon with final paperwork, immunity agreements, and relocation documents. "Wyoming," she said, reviewing their choice. "Good pick. Far from everything but not isolated. The FBI will maintain a security detail for the first year just to be safe. Discreet, Michael asked. Invisible. You've earned your peace, Mr. Reynolds. You too, Ms. Blackwood. Actually, Rachel said, glancing at Michael, I'm thinking of changing my name. Fresh start and all. Rachel Reynolds has a nice ring to it. Michael's heart skipped though his expression remained steady. That's a big step. I'm good with big steps. Besides, someone needs to make sure you don't go running off on any more suicide missions. Gross, Emma announced. They're being romantic. It's nice, Lily countered. Daddy smiles more when Miss Rachel's around. Price cleared her throat, fighting a smile. I'll leave you to sort out the personal details. Mr. Reynolds, Ms. Black. Ms. Reynolds, your country owes you a debt it can never fully repay. Just make sure this never happens again, Michael said. That's the plan. The reforms going through Congress will make it much harder for another Morrison to operate. And the technical vulnerabilities Chen exploited are being closed across all critical infrastructure. After she left the room, fell into comfortable silence. The girls continued coloring. Rachel worked on her tablet, designing their new life, and Michael watched them all, his unlikely family. You know, Rachel said eventually, we never did get to finish that first dinner. The one where you were going to feed me soup while I bled on your couch. Rain check. Definitely. Though maybe with less bleeding this time. I make no promises, Michael said. Trouble seems to find us. Or we find it. She reached over, took his hand. But I think we handle it pretty well together. Looking at her, at his daughters, at the future stretching before them, Michael had to agree. They'd been tested by fire, betrayal, and violence. They'd survived through trust, courage, and an unexpected love that had grown in the midst of chaos. The soldier in him would always remain vigilant, always ready to protect what mattered. But the man, the father, the partner, he was becoming that person, was ready for something more than survival. He was ready to live. Wyoming waited for them, mountains and sky and endless possibility. A place to build something new from the ashes of what had been destroyed. A place where Emma and Lily could grow up strong and free, where Rachel could rebuild her career with purpose instead of profit, where Michael could finally lay down the weight of his past and embrace the future. It wouldn't be easy. Healing never was. But looking at Rachel as she showed the girls pictures of potential horses on her tupala, listening to their excited chatter about their new life, Michael knew with certainty that it would be worth it. The war was over. The peace, hard won and precious, was theirs to shape. And for the first time in 3 years, Michael Reynolds was ready to embrace it fully, without reservation, without looking back. The ghosts were quiet. The future was calling. And together, this unlikely family would answer. 6 months after the hospital, Wyoming stretched before them like a canvas of possibility. The ranch house sat on a rise overlooking the Wind River Range, its wraparound porch catching the morning sun that painted the mountains in shades of gold and purple. Michael stood at the kitchen window, coffee in hand, watching Rachel work with Emma and Lily in the garden they'd planted together. The girls were laughing at something Rachel had said, their voices carrying on the clean mountain air. The transition hadn't been seamless. There were nights when Michael woke reaching for his weapon, when shadows held threats that existed only in memory. Rachel had her own demons' nightmares about David, about the ship, about the price of truth. But they faced them together, two wounded souls, learning that healing was possible when you didn't have to do it alone. You're staring again, Rachel said, entering the kitchen with a basket of fresh vegetables, the girls trailing behind with their own smaller harvests. Just thinking, Michael replied, pulling her close despite the dirt on her clothes. About how different this is from what I planned. Better or worse? He looked at his daughters washing vegetables at the sink, while debating whether tomatoes were actually fruit. Then back at Rachel, her dark hair pulled back, dirt smudged on her cheek, more beautiful than she'd ever been in her billionaire life. Better. Infinitely better. The secure phone Price had insisted they keep rang, interrupting the moment. Michael frowned. It had been 2 months since the last check-in. "Reynolds," he answered. "Michael, it's Catherine. I'm sorry to disturb your peace, but we have a situation." Rachel moved closer, concern flickering across her features. The girls, sensing the shift in atmosphere, quieted their vegetable debate. "What kind of situation?" Michael asked. "James Morrison is dead." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Michael felt Rachel's hand grip his arm. "How?" "Murdered. In federal prison, maximum security. Professional hit made to look like suicide, but the angles are all wrong." "Michael," he left a message, written in his own blood on the cell wall. "What message?" "The roots run deeper, and beneath it, your ranch's coordinates." The old familiar ice flooded Michael's veins. Not fear for himself, but for his family, for the peace they'd built. "How many know about this?" he asked. "Right now, just myself and the team that found him. But Michael, if Morrison was killed to silence him, it means someone doesn't want him talking. Someone still in the system." The conspiracy didn't end with Morrison and Chen. "That's what I'm afraid of. I'm sending a security detail." "No," Michael interrupted. "That'll just confirm our location to whoever's watching. We'll handle our own security." "Michael, Catherine, whoever killed Morrison waited 6 months. They're not moving immediately. They're planning something. Give me 48 hours to dig into this." "You're supposed to be retired." "Some soldiers never really retire. 48 hours. He hung up, turned to find Rachel already moving her laptop out, fingers flying across the keyboard. "I'm accessing Morrison's prison communication logs," she said. "If he was in contact with someone—" "Daddy." Emma's small voice cut through the tension. "Is the bad man coming back?" Michael knelt, pulled both daughters close. "No, sweetheart. The bad man is gone. But some of his friends might be upset about that." "Will we have to run again?" Lily asked, her voice barely a whisper. "No." The word was firm, absolute. "This is our home. We don't run from our home. We protect it." Over the next hours, the ranch transformed. Michael revealed defensive positions he'd built into the property from the beginning. Reinforced barriers disguised as decorative walls, weapon caches hidden throughout the grounds, surveillance equipment that covered every approach. "You've been preparing for this," Rachel observed, watching him work. "I prepare for everything. It's what kept me alive in Afghanistan, what kept us alive in Denver. Hope for peace, plan for war. That's a lonely way to live." "Not anymore." Rachel's laptop chimed. "Got something." Morrison had 3 visitors in the last month. His lawyer expected. A journalist investigating the conspiracy also expected. And, she frowned, someone using federal credentials but whose identity doesn't actually exist in any database. Description: male 50s, gray hair scar on left cheek. Signed in as Agent Thomas from Homeland Security, but there's no Agent Thomas matching that description. Michael studied the prison's security footage Rachel had somehow accessed. The man moved like a professional, aware of cameras, keeping his face partially obscured. "I've seen him before," Michael said slowly, memory stirring. "Afghanistan, 2018. CIA liaison to special operations. Never got a real name, just called him Mr. Gray." CIA. Rachel's fingers flew across the keyboard. If this goes into intelligence services beyond the FBI, then Morrison and Chen were just the tip of the iceberg. That night, after the girls were asleep, Michael and Rachel sat on the porch, weapons within reach, watching the darkness. The Wyoming wilderness that had felt like sanctuary now seemed full of potential threats. "We could leave," Rachel said quietly. "Take the girls, disappear completely. I have resources hidden away, identities prepared. Is that what you want?" She was quiet for a long moment. 6 months ago, I would have said yes. But now, this is our home. The girls have friends school their horses. We have a life here. Running means giving all that up. Running means letting them win. Fighting means risking everything we've built. Michael took her hand, felt the calluses that had replaced manicured softness, the strength that had always been there but now showed in different ways. "Rachel, when you came crashing into my life, bleeding and terrified, I made a choice. Not just to help you, but to stand for something again. To show my daughters that doing right matters more than doing safe. And if the cost is what it is. But I've learned something these past months. Life isn't about avoiding cost. It's about choosing what's worth paying for." She leaned against him, this brilliant woman who'd given up billions to stand for truth. Then we fight smart. These people, whoever they are, they're used to operating from shadows, using fear and intimidation. But they made one mistake. "What's that?" "They threatened my family, again." The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. Marcus arrived in a rental truck, not his usual style, wearing civilian clothes that didn't quite hide the soldier beneath. "Vacation?" Michael asked, though he knew better. "Something like that. Heard you might have a pest problem. Thought I'd help with extermination." They embraced brothers in all but blood. Rachel hugged him too, this man who'd been their lifeline during the crisis. "Uncle Marcus." The girls came running, having met him during the trials. He swung them up, one in each arm, their laughter momentarily banishing the shadow of threat. "You've gotten huge," he told them. "What's your dad feeding you?" "Miss Rachel's cooking," Emma said. "It's way better than Daddy's." "Traitors," Michael muttered, but he was smiling. After the girls went to tend their horses, Marcus's demeanor shifted to business. "I brought toys," he said, opening the truck to reveal cases of military-grade equipment. "And intelligence. Mr. Gray isn't just CIA. He's part of something called the Prometheus Group." "Never heard of it," Michael said. "Because it doesn't officially exist. Deep state stuff, the kind of conspiracy theories that happen to be true. They've been selling American intelligence for decades, using the money to fund black operations that even the president doesn't know about." Rachel pulled up her laptop. "Prometheus, in Greek mythology, he stole fire from the gods. These people see themselves as stealing power from governments. More like they see themselves as the real government," Marcus corrected. "Elected officials come and go. They remain. Morrison and Chen were just their latest operation, and when it went sideways..." "They're cleaning house," Michael finished. "Morrison knew too much, might have traded intel for a lighter sentence. And you two are loose ends. You know Morrison was dirty, you have evidence that could lead back to them if anyone looked hard enough." "So they're coming," Rachel said, her voice steady despite the fear Michael could see in her eyes. "They're already here," Marcus said grimly. "I counted 3 surveillance positions on my way in. Professional but not invisible if you know what to look for." Michael moved to the window using binoculars to scan the tree lines. There, a glint of glass where there should be none. And there, disturbed earth near the western approach, possibly sensors or worse. "How long?" he asked. "Tonight, maybe tomorrow. They'll want it quiet, make it look like a murder-suicide or home invasion. Can't have another public spectacle like Morrison." "The girls are the leverage," Marcus said bluntly. They'll use them to control you, force compliance. Michael felt the familiar rage building, but colder now, more focused. Then we need to move them. No, Rachel said suddenly. Both men looked at her. That's what they expect. Parents protecting children by sending them away. But that leaves us vulnerable, and them as potential targets later. What are you suggesting? Michael asked. We use their assumptions against them. They think we're victims, refugees from their conspiracy. They don't know what we've become. She pulled up architectural plans on her laptop, their ranch, but overlaid with tactical notations. I've been studying, learning from you both. This ranch isn't just defendable, it's a trap waiting to be sprung. Michael studied her work, impressed despite himself. She'd identified every tactical position, every vulnerability, and more importantly, how to turn them into advantages. The barn, she continued, looks vulnerable but has clear sight lines from the house. They'll use it for cover, but we've rigged it with cameras and other surprises. Other surprises? Marcus asked. Let's just say my chemistry knowledge extends beyond computers. Non-lethal mostly, but effective. The girls, Michael pressed. The safe room in the basement. Reinforced, supplied, and with a tunnel exit you don't know about because I had it built while you were in Denver last month testifying. Michael stared at her. You built a tunnel. You're not the only one who prepares for contingencies. The girls have been practicing evacuation drills as a game. They can be secured in under 60 seconds. Marcus whistled low. Damn, brother. You found yourself a warrior. I found myself a family worth protecting, Rachel corrected. Now let's discuss how we're going to end this once and for all. They spent the day preparing, turning the ranch into a sophisticated defensive position. The girls, sensing something without fully understanding, stayed close but obedient. As evening approached, Michael found them in their room, packing their emergency bags without being asked. You're not scared? He asked. Emma looked up with eyes too wise for her years. You and Miss Rachel will protect us. You always do. But it's okay to be scared, Lily added. Miss Rachel says being scared just means something's important enough to worry about losing. Miss Rachel's pretty smart, Michael agreed. Are you going to marry her? Emma asked with characteristic directness. The question caught him off guard. Why do you ask? Because she makes you happy, and she makes us happy, and families should be official, right? Michael pulled them close. Right now, let's focus on keeping our family safe. We can talk about making things official later. Is that a yes? Lily pressed. It's a we'll see. That's parent speak for yes, Emma told her sister confidently. As darkness fell, the ranch settled into deceptive quiet. The girls were secured in the safe room with tablets, snacks, and Marcus's assurance that he'd come get them when it was over. Rachel and Michael took positions at strategic windows while Marcus covered the rear approach. Movement, Rachel whispered into the radio. North tree line 3 figures. 4 more from the east, Marcus confirmed. They're good using the terrain well. But predictable, Michael added, tracking them through his scope. Mr. Gray's running this like a standard operation. He doesn't know we're ready. The attackers moved closer, clearly expecting sleeping victims. The first team reached the barn exactly as Rachel had predicted. The second moved toward the house's front, while a third held back as overwatch. Wait for it, Michael commanded, watching them position themselves. The barn team entered the structure, and Rachel triggered her surprise, a combination of flashbangs and homemade pepper spray dispensers that sent them stumbling out, gasping and blind. Now, Michael ordered. The ranch erupted in controlled chaos. Floodlights blazed to life, destroying night vision advantages. Marcus's rifle cracked precise shots that disabled weapons and wounded without killing. Michael moved through the house like a ghost, using interior positions to pin down the advancing teams. But these weren't Morrison's hired thugs. They adapted quickly, using smoke grenades to obscure sightlines advancing with disciplined fire and movement. "They're pressing hard from the east." Marcus reported his position, taking heavy fire. "Rachel, can you—" "Already on it." She triggered another surprise sprinkler systems she'd modified to spray a slippery polymer solution. The advancing team lost footing on the suddenly frictionless ground, their tactical advantage becoming a liability. But then Michael saw him, Mr. Gray, standing beyond the combat zone watching through binoculars. And beside him, a figure that made Michael's blood freeze. "Marcus, you seeing this?" "Yeah. Is that who I think it is?" General Patricia Hayes, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The conspiracy didn't just run deep, it ran to the very top of American military command. "New plan," Michael said. "We need one of them alive." He moved before the others could protest, using the chaos as cover to circle behind enemy lines. These operatives were good, but Michael had been forged in harder fires. He reached Mr. Gray's position just as the older man was speaking into a satellite phone. "Clean this up," Gray was saying. "No witnesses, no evidence." "Afraid I can't let that happen," Michael said, his pistol pressed to Gray's spine. Gray didn't even flinch. "Sergeant Reynolds, I should have handled you personally from the beginning." "Probably. Hands where I can see them." General Hayes turned slowly, her face showing disappointment rather than fear. "You have no idea what you're interfering with, soldier. Enlighten me." "The world is changing," she said, as if lecturing a junior officer. "China, Russia, new powers rising. America can't compete playing by old rules. The Prometheus Group ensures our survival by any means necessary. By selling out to the highest bidder, by playing all sides," Gray corrected. "Today's enemy is tomorrow's ally. We maintain balance, prevent any one power from dominating. You're traitors hiding behind patriotism." "We're realists in a world of idealists," Hayes said. "Your little victory over Morrison and Chen, we allowed it. They'd become liabilities, too greedy, too visible. You did us a favor, actually." "Then why come after us?" "Because you know too much. Because that woman," Gray nodded toward the house where Rachel was still fighting, "has skills we need and knowledge we can't allow to remain free. Because your daughters would make excellent leverage for future operations." The casual mention of his daughters snapped something in Michael. He struck Gray with the pistol butt, dropping him, then faced Hayes. "You're done. All of you. We have evidence, recordings, everything." Hayes smiled coldly. "Evidence of what? A general visiting a ranch? A CIA officer conducting legitimate surveillance? You have nothing that would stand in court." She was right, and Michael knew it. But before he could respond, Rachel's voice crackled over the radio. "Michael, we have a problem. The girls, someone's at the safe room door." Ice flooded his veins. He'd been played. The frontal assault was a distraction. Someone else was already inside. He ran, leaving Hayes and the unconscious Gray, his only thought reaching his daughters. Behind him, he heard Hayes speaking calmly into her radio. "Asset inside. Proceed with acquisition." Michael burst through the house, finding Marcus down, but breathing Rachel, defending the basement stairs with fierce determination. Below, he could hear Emma and Lily screaming. "Go!" Rachel shouted. "I've got this!" He descended into the basement, finding the safe room door blown open, shaped charges, professional work. Inside, a figure in tactical gear had Emma, while Lily hit him with her small fists. Michael didn't hesitate. The knife left his hand, striking the operative's shoulder, making him drop Emma. The girls ran to their father as Michael advanced on the wounded kidnapper. The man pulled off his mask, revealing a face Michael knew: David Chen. Impossible. You're dead. Chen smiled through obvious pain. Death can be negotiated like everything else. The Prometheus group valued my skills more than Morrison's testimony. You're not taking my children. I don't have to, Chen said, pulling a device from his vest. Dead man's switch. I release this, the house explodes. We all die. Or you let me walk with one girl insurance for everyone's good behavior. Michael calculated angles, distances, possibilities. Chen was too far to reach before he could release the switch. But then he heard something unexpected, Rachel's voice from behind Chen. David, you always did underestimate me. Chen spun, seeing Rachel had used the tunnel to circle behind. In that moment of distraction, Michael moved. Not toward Chen, but to his daughters, shielding them as Rachel shot Chen's hand, making him drop the device. The switch fell, and for a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Fake, Rachel said calmly. I disabled the house charges an hour ago. Just like I knew you weren't really dead, your code signature was all over recent intrusion attempts on my systems. Chen laughed, blood running from his wounds. Clever to the end, but it doesn't matter. The group has resources you can't imagine. They'll keep coming. No, a new voice said from the stairs. They won't. Catherine Price descended with a full FBI tactical team, but more importantly with recording equipment. General Hayes and Mr. Gray are in custody, she announced, along with 14 operatives, and thanks to Ms. Reynolds' foresight in recording everything, including your confession just now, we have enough to expose the entire Prometheus group. You were listening? Michael asked Rachel. She held up her phone. Broadcasting to Price and a dozen news outlets. The conspiracy theories about deep state operations. They're about to become conspiracy facts. Chen's face went pale. You don't know what you've done. The chaos this will cause will be temporary, Price interrupted. And necessary. Democracy requires transparency even when it's painful. As medics tended to Chen and Marcus as the girls clung to their father as Rachel coordinated with Price to ensure every bit of evidence was preserved, Michael realized something had fundamentally changed. They weren't running anymore. They weren't hiding. They'd stood their ground and won not through superior firepower, but through preparation, intelligence, and the unbreakable bond of family. Is it over? Emma asked in a small voice. Michael looked at Rachel, who nodded slowly. The immediate threat is, there will be trials, testimony, probably years of legal proceedings. But the Prometheus group is finished. Their power came from secrecy, and that's gone now. So we can stay here? Lily asked. On our ranch. We can stay, Michael confirmed, pulling them close. Later, after the FBI had left with their prisoners, after Marcus had been treated and was resting after the girls had finally fallen asleep in their own beds, Michael found Rachel standing on the porch, looking at the stars. Hell of a thing, he said, joining her. Which part? The secret government conspiracy, my not-dead ex-fiancé, or the fact that we just saved democracy? All of it. But mostly the part where you outmaneuvered everyone, including me. She leaned against him. I learned from the best. Besides, someone had to be the strategic thinker while you were being all tactical and heroic. We make a good team. The best. They stood in comfortable silence, the Wyoming night peaceful around them. The ranch bore scars from the battle bullet holes, scorched, earth-damaged buildings. But it stood. They stood. The girls asked me earlier if I was going to marry you, Michael said suddenly. Rachel tensed slightly. What did you tell them? That we'd focus on safety first, talk about the rest later. And now that we're safe? Michael turned to face her, this remarkable woman who'd crashed into his life and transformed it completely. Now I think Emma's right. Families should be official. Is that a proposal, Sergeant Reynolds? It's a recognition of what already exists. You're not just Rachel anymore. You're the woman who saved us all, who gave we daughters hope again, who reminded me that life is about more than survival. You saved me first, she reminded him. That day on the road, you could have driven past, could have protected your peace. Instead, you chose to help a stranger. Best decision I ever made, after choosing Sarah after having the girls. I'm okay being third on that list, Rachel said softly. Those are pretty good company. Michael pulled out something he'd been carrying for weeks, Sarah's engagement ring, the one he'd kept in the safe, unable to part with it, but unable to look at it. I talked to the girls about this, he said. They think their mom would want you to have it. Said she'd approve of someone who protects us like you do. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. Michael. It doesn't have to mean replacing her. It means continuing the story. Building on what was to create what will be. Yes, she said simply. Yes to all of it. To the ring, to the family, to whatever comes next. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, a sound drifted from the house, the girls supposedly asleep cheering from their window. We knew it, Emma called down. We totally knew it. Come down here, you sneaks. Rachel laughed, and the girls came running, joining them on the porch in a tangle of hugs and celebration. Does this mean you're our mom now? Lily asked. Rachel looked at Michael, then at these brave, resilient girls. If you'll have me. We will, Emma said solemnly. But you have to promise something. What's that? No more bad guys. We want boring now, boring and happy and together. I think we can manage that, Michael said, though he knew better. Life was never truly boring, never completely safe. But looking at his family complete now in ways he'd never imagined possible, he knew they could handle whatever came. The war was over. The battles might continue in courtrooms and headlines, but here on this ranch in Wyoming, peace had finally come. 6 months ago, Rachel had arrived bleeding and desperate, bringing chaos into his carefully controlled world. Now she stood wearing his ring, his daughters calling her mom, their enemies defeated, and their future bright with possibility. Michael Reynolds, soldier, father, protector, and now soon-to-be husband, again looked at his family and knew a truth that no conspiracy could shake. Sometimes the best things come from the worst circumstances. Sometimes salvation arrives in the form of crisis. Sometimes a stranger at the door becomes the love you thought you'd never find again. The stars wheeled overhead, the mountains stood eternal, and on a ranch in Wyoming, a family forged in fire settled into their hard-won peace, ready for whatever tomorrow might bring. Together.